Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 798. My opponent started off with e4 and I went for the Sicilian defense. It was knight f3 and I decided to go for a e6 Sicilian. And then he surprised me a little bit by playing the move knight to c3, which can introduce a bunch of different systems, but in this case I think we ended up in a standard Sicilian, so it was just kind of a little move order trick. So if I wanted to play the con Sicilian, I could have continued with a6 here. That was my original intent, and then see if he wanted to play d4. But well, I reacted to this move with knight to c6, and then yeah, then he just played d4. So we transposed back into an open Sicilian. I thought maybe he was playing a closed Sicilian where this is a good move. So now we've gotten into the Taimanov, and if you look at the numbers. No, I guess it was. Let's follow this. So I go e6. We're down to 1,000. He goes knight to c3, down to 700. I go here, 600. He goes d4, 600. I take. Yeah, and here it jumps back after knight takes. It jumps back to 4,000. What's happened is we've transposed into a mainline Taimanov Sicilian, which I don't actually play. So I went with a6, which is the move that defines the con Sicilian. This also seems like a good move here. Not the top choice. Looks like the top choice is queen to c7. I like to have a6 in before queen c7 just because it stops the knight from coming to that b5 square. And the knight on b5 is looking at this hole on d6 as well. So this is still a reasonable way to play. And I was a little surprised by him taking, but I see that in the opening book this was the second choice, so still apparently a part of this line. Usually it's a bad idea because it brings black's pawns towards the center and gives them some more center influence. But if he just played with, say, bishop d3 here, that's the way to play it. Then, you know, I might continue with d5, and he could just castle, and I would go knight c6, say. And this is an interesting position, say rook e1 and bishop e7. I think that's how far I got. You know, he can continue with cancel that. He can continue with e5, and I can go knight d7, and that's how the line goes. But it looks like it's a playable line for black. I mean, white has that advanced pawn, but I can try and put some pressure on it. I can also push on the queen side a little bit and develop this bishop out here. So anyway, looks like it's a position that white still has that slight opening advantage, but it should be fine for black as well. Instead, in the game, instead of going with bishop d3, he went with bishop to c4. And this is just asking for me to play the d5 move and kick that bishop. And after this, there's no more opening advantage for white. White is basically giving black a tempo. In fact, the chess engine says the best move here is to drop back to d3, and then I would continue knight f6, and you know, he could castle and I could develop my bishop, and we would get into that same line that we just looked at, but black would be a tempo down, having wasted the move bishop to c4 and then drop back to d3. So it'd be the same line, but black would have gained a tempo, and that would be fine. It's about even. And the way he plays it after d5 taking is actually slightly better for black. So I get a solid center with no pressure on it, and he drops his bishop, and for the moment at least it's not doing anything active on b3. So there's a slight edge to black here. Let's see. So I just do some normal development. He castles. Go bishop d6. Goes bishop g5. I castle. Queen to f3, putting pressure on my knight. So I drop my bishop back here. I don't want him trading out and messing up my pawn structure. He goes rook f to e1, and I go bishop b7. Don't want to do anything about the situation over here until I complete my development, get all my pieces out. And then he brings his queen over to h3. So I should have suspected that he was going for a sacrifice, but h6 is kind of the logical move to play here anyway, asking that bishop what it's doing on that diagonal, and then you know, looking for ways to unpin my knight with tempo maybe. But in this point, he took, so he went for the sacrifice. And this is just not a sound sacrifice. The chess engine rates the best move here as bishop to e3, and then it gives bishop to d6. So that's a successful unpinning for me. I'm not sure what I would do exactly if he just retreated his bishop back along this diagonal, but I'd be looking for ways to move that knight with tempo, and maybe just bring my rook into the game. Actually, the idea of lifting the rook might be interesting. Also, maybe the idea of pushing this pawn forward and harassing his pieces over here on the queen side might be something. He's got it guarded for the moment. Anyway, that's all kind of a moot point because he takes, and that's just not a good move here. And I play quite well for. Let's see. I keep a winning edge from here up until I don't know, move 30 or so, where I do actually let him. I give him one chance to get back in the game, but basically I'm winning for the next 15 moves or so. So I didn't do that badly, even though I didn't always play the most accurate move. So taking, that's good. Queen takes, and then knight to h7. What's funny is the chess engine prefers knight to h7 is like the second choice of the chess engine. The top choice is bishop d6. And, I was wondering, what if he tries something like this? Say, queen g5, drive my king to the h-file and lift the rook. Looks pretty scary, but now knight to h7 can be played, hitting the queen. Queen goes to the h-file, then rook to g8, and if he brings his rook over, then I can lift my rook up. And so anyway, that's just fine for black as well, and I'm a piece up. So anyway, knight to h7 is what I played, and this still keeps winning edge for black. He goes rook e3. Go bishop to g5, chasing the queen away and hitting his rook, although I realized he could do this pin. That's still the best move. Actually, the chess engine, the next 5 moves, the chess engine is giving the thumbs up to, saying they're really the best moves for both sides even. So let's see, I hide away over here. The queen now has to move. That I saw the pin coming, but I noticed that I had that adequately defended, so this is not a problem. And then I bring my queen in, and it's still in this. This is still the best play for both sides. Then h4, and then here I really could have taken that pawn. I thought this would be a problem. Bishop takes, rook to h3, and if I move the bishop, he mates me. But well, I can move the bishop with check. This is what I did in spot. And if the king goes to f1, I get another check. I can go here to e3, and then block here with my queen, maybe. I don't know why bishop e3 was so good, actually. Anyway, I can move my bishop with check, and I can bring up my queen to g6 and defend the knight that way, so that would work. Or if he goes to h1, just queen to g6 immediately. And this just holds on to everything. So this is fine. Bishop to f4 was also one of the top engine choices, so both those moves work. It was just that it's interesting that bishop takes h4 would work as well. Let's see, went rook f3, hitting my bishop. Went queen to h6. I'm just going to try and chase that queen away. So he runs away. He wants to keep the queen on. And I drop my bishop back to e5. So everything seems to be pretty fine. He tries to bring his knight into the game. And I push on with f5, harassing his queen there. Queen runs over to b4. And hitting my bishop, so I have to defend my bishop. Plays queen to e7. And it went queen to f6. So here's where maybe I'm not playing the best moves. The chess engine finds a nice way to defend along the second rank using the rook. I can't play rook f7 immediately. I can go rook g8. And there's no big threat at the moment. He's not threatening to take anything. And he can't... well, he could creep in a little closer, but it doesn't help him much. The rook doesn't have any great moves, neither does the knight or the bishop. Something like rook e1 to potentially threaten my bishop. Now rook g7 chases his queen away, and I can still come over with queen f6 and defend my bishop. So that would be most accurate way to play. Queen f6, and he just trades. And let's see, and I take with the bishop, and actually taking with the knight is the best move there. But all of this still leaves black with a winning advantage. I mean, I'm still a piece up. It's just that he's getting a little more play here, kind of step by step. c3, bishop takes h4. I was hitting a couple of pawns there, so he defended on the queen side, and I take this pawn, but that allows him to get some play along the h-file. Let's see, I drop back. He goes knight to f4, bring his knight in to attack the pawn and also threaten this check. So this is what I missed. This is really well, one of my mistakes in the game. The other moves, they were like maybe not the most accurate move, but still keeping an advantage. This lets him off the hook. I should really go rook f to e8. That meets both threats. He has the check, but I defend the pawn, and the check doesn't win anything. I brought the other rook over, just not noticing the check until it was too late. So basically, I just missed that move, and so he gets the exchange back. And after this, funny enough, black still has the advantage. The chess gives like a +1 advantage, but no longer that solidly winning advantage that I had all the way up to this point. So I think anyway, let's see if we go back to that original sacrifice that was on move 15, and we're up to move 30. Yeah, so 15 moves where I kept that winning edge, and also it kind of shows that sacrifice was pretty easy to refute. So I don't think really there was any justification for white to play that way. I mean, sometimes you can play an unsound sacrifice if it's kind of murky, but I don't think the defense was that hard to find in this case, so I can't really say that move is justified. Anyway, let's see. He deactivates his other pieces. He brings the rook out, and I defend here. Chess Engine likes defending with a knight a little better. Knight g5 would also defend, though there is this danger of the pawn coming forward to harass the knight. Anyway, we'll come back to that point. Rook e8, I defend here. He played bishop a4, activating the bishop, chasing my rook a little bit. He lifts his rook, getting that out. I go knight g5, and I knew he had this pin, but I was planning to just support it with a king. Let's see, he went rook h2. Dropped his rook back. Yeah, I mean, I knew I was playing this move with tempo. I was really kind of expecting him to bring the rook to g3 right away, but he ends up bringing the other rook over there. Let's see. So I went bishop c8. I'm thinking of bringing this bishop around this way to challenge his bishop. Also, it defends this pawn, which is now triply defended, but it frees up my other pieces to move. So let's see. He went bishop to c6 here. Yeah, he brought his bishop in, maybe looking to come into one of these squares if allowed. And so now I can't play this move because he can drop this way. So stops my plans with the bishop. I thought, oh, how about if I push the center pawns forward? And I think this is still a good move. It just kind of opens things up a little bit for my bishops. The bishop pair likes to have open space. So he takes, I take back, hitting his rook, and now he comes over and delivers the pin. And I was originally planning to play king g6, and then I started worrying about this f5 move. But of course, it's silly to worry about f5 because that pawn is pinned. So this king g6 move, or the move I played here instead of king g6, is actually the blunder that lets him back in the game. So I had an edge all the way up to this point, and then I let him back into this game with this one silly move, bishop to e5. So just to show this line, say king g6, he could go king f1 to unpin, threatening f4 to attack my pinned knight. But now I can play this bishop e5 move, skewering his rooks, and this is just good for black. So black is still doing fine here. Instead, I played this move immediately, and now he can take with check, so he gets some material back. And the only thing that really saves me, which I had to find at the last moment, is this rook to c7 move. And this leads to a position which is much closer to even. Let's see. He could play g3 here. I take his bishop, and then this is a position he can probably hold the end game. He has two rooks, and I have the bishop pair against one of those rooks, but he has an extra pawn for his trouble. So as long as he holds on to his pawns, so he has to play something to save that pawn, then he should be okay. Should be able to hold that endgame. Anyway, so rook g8 is the move that puts me back in a winning situation. So I pick up his bishop, and now he has to deal with this threat to the back rank. I mean, that was the thing, is there was this mate threat on the back rank that he needed to deal with, and that was why he had to give up the bishop one way or another. So he plays g3 now, and let's see, right here, yeah, the quickest win from this point is rook c1. This is kind of a nice way to play. He avoids going to this file because this bishop check is going to lead to a devastating check on the h file here. So so he goes directly to h2, bishop b7 anyway, and then the king is getting into real trouble here. Notice that just running doesn't help. There's still a mate because the escape square is blocked. So he has to find something. Rook to h6 check is a suggestion. King to f7, rook h7 check, giving up the rook and grabbing the bishop. And this is still winning for black, but that is the best that white can do in that situation if I had found that rook c1 check. So that's the quickest win for black. Let's see, I went king e7, so this just leads to a longer game. He goes rook h7. Oh, sorry, he went rook h7. Yeah, the bishop was on g7. He couldn't play there, and so he chases my king around for a bit. But I still think I keep a winning edge through this part. f4 is a mistake because it just gives away his pawn. At this point, he really needed to bring his rook back, and I can play on in this situation. The chess engine rates this as +1 for black. So maybe, yeah, maybe it's still he has drawing chances here. I think finally after f4, there's no more drawing chances for black after this. Yeah, I made this note here. Now black wins. So through the rest of the complications, there's still some ups and downs, but actually I keep a winning edge the rest of the game, so I don't blow the win anymore after this. Let's see, although there's some faster wins, so I'll show you that. Let's see, so I grabbed the pawn. Let's see, he brought his rook to h8, and now, of course, one of the faster wins is just to grab that rook. For some reason, I was not seeing that move. Well, I wanted to get this bishop off the back rank, and it was under attack, but really it's better for me to take his rook. Let's see, so let's go forward some moves here. He's kind of chasing my pieces around, and I had seen that he could pin my bishop, but I could defend the pin, and I noticed he could attack this pawn, but I can attack his rook. So all of that worked out, and I managed to kind of untangle my pieces, and let's see, I played bishop g2 check. Bishop g2 check is not something that gives away the win, but I end up having to take the move back. So basically, instead of going there, I should have just grabbed the a-pawn. So what happens here, bishop g2 check, he went king h4, and I have to get the bishop out of the way in order to bring my rook over, which is what I wanted to do. So the bishop goes back to d5, and now he could just move his king back, and I would have to find another move here. But of course I can take the pawn still, so it's still winning. It's just kind of a wasted move. But anyway, he came forward with the king, and then I keep that winning edge. Yeah, okay, so there's no more corrections here to find. So I think I play the rest of this endgame reasonably well. It's just with this outside passed pawn, I just have to slowly unwind and get my king out from being in front of the pawn. And that's kind of a desperation sacrifice here, but there was no way for him to stop this pawn from queening. But after the sacrifice, is still a pretty simple win because this bishop is the same color as this rook pawn square. So even if let's see, he manages to win this pawn and then get over here in front of this pawn, I can always chase him away with my bishop and queen. So anyway, the simplest way to eliminate counterplay is just to get rid of his pawns first, and so I do that, and then I just win this king and pawn endgame, which he recognized at this point and resigned. So anyway, it was a fun game. Hope you guys enjoyed that one, and I will see you again soon.